I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kate Champion. I'm an author, therapist, and generally curious human whose life has been full of ups and downs, twists and turns, mess and adventures, some intentional and some not so much. Welcome to Living Big Mindfully, a later in life podcast. Here are 3 questions for you. Are you ready? Are you in midlife or beyond? Or maybe struggling with next steps or finding your feet? Possibly feeling like something's missing, not quite right with your life? Or maybe you have a sense that you're really not living your own truth. Okay, you're right, that was way more than 3 questions. But were there any yes answers? Yeah? Okay, fantastic. That means that you are in the right place and this is the show for you. So grab a seat, get comfy, and join us for inspiring, heartfelt conversations. Conversations with real people just like you and me. Listen in as we chat about life, love, health, healing, and thriving well into our later years. And let's commit to creating honest, fulfilling lives and giving a high five to living big mindfully. One more thing. Make sure you visit katechampionauthor.com. Check out Never Too Late and You Are Limitless, my best-selling books. And while you're there, be sure to download your free hiking guide. And remember, check out our Living Big Mindfully community on Facebook. And please share your favorite episode with your friends. Thank you so much. Okay, that is enough for me. Are you ready? Great. Then let's dive in. In this week's episode of Living Big Mindfully, I am happy to be speaking with Beth, also known as Rae Antenucci. Rae is a member of the Back of the Pack Facebook community. She's a marathon walker who has completed over 100 half marathons over her lifetime. And Rae has just transitioned into her 2nd year of retirement, and she is having an absolute blast. In this fun conversation, Rae shares openly about her life after 30 years of working, how she prepared for retirement, and the importance of not being defined by work. In this episode, we cover so much. For example, getting clear on your values, staying fit and healthy for the long haul, redefining purpose, and how she learned to live intentionally. Rae goes on to share her down-to-earth practical tips and strategies about getting your financial house in order, pushing beyond your comfort zone, and the importance of dreaming big. As expected, Rae ends the show with some powerful, heartfelt sage advice, and she also wants people to know that she absolutely loves not knowing what day of the week it is. Can you imagine? Wow, what a great show. Enjoy. All right, so today I am excited to welcome Beth Antenucci. Beth is a member of the Back of the Pack athlete group, and she is, an athlete. She's still doing half marathons, walking marathons. She's done something in 50 states. She's out there doing it every single day. And she is also, or has also just transitioned. She's a year into transitioning from the corporate world, like kind of the work world, into retirement. And that's a theme I am super curious about. So I invited Beth onto the show, and she's been willing to chat with us. So hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello. Thank you very much. So excited to be here.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time and your energy today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey, and give us the listeners an idea about who you are.
I started walking about 20 years ago to help one of my sisters lose weight. So we started with 5Ks, progressed up to 10Ks, fulls and halves. So that I'm the one that's stuck with it the most. At this stage, I've completed halves in all 50 states once. I'm halfway through round 2 with 120 halves total, 3 fulls. I'm not taking them off the table to do again, but that takes a lot of training, especially being a walker. I worked for 33 years for one company. I had another role for 4 years previous to that. Moved up the ladder, so to speak, and did different types of jobs. So it was with an electric utility. So I started in the power plant, worked to be a distribution tech, working out in the field, meeting customers, then worked scheduling the overhead line crews, doing outage follow-up, eventually into a role as a project manager, business analyst, supporting app development. So always up for a new challenge, working in new departments, and working in a lot of male-dominated fields, where I was the only woman at the table, and a lot of times the only person without a bachelor's degree. So had to really make my way through stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite an inspirational story. I honestly didn't realize that about you and your background. So that's actually a pretty inspirational story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And then you've recently made that transition, right? From maybe not recently. I know that you said that you had just celebrated the beginning of your second year of retirement. And I would love to know a little bit more about that kind of transition, because you seem to be having a blast. I mean, you're out there. Every time I look in the group, you've been to a different state. You've completed another walk. I mean, you're really out there, kind of living life. So I'd love to hear more about that transition.
Yeah, I've always had interests outside of work. My job title was never my identity. So I know a lot of people get tied to what their job title is. I never was that way. When I first entered the corporate world, my dream job at the time was to be a horse trainer or breeder. So as soon as I got my first job, and could afford things, I got a horse, a truck, and a trailer, and, started down that path. So I always had interest outside of work. So I had something to move on to. And sometimes I think retirement, people think of that as like an on-off switch. For me, it was, because I did go from a high-stress corporate job to not working at all. But my husband and I live on a farm, so we have plenty of projects to do. And then I have my walking goals that I want to accomplish. So the first 6 months I had planned out with a couple trips, a couple big projects that we wanted to do, and some relaxation time. And then, I've been kind of going with the flow and making things up as I go along. So being agile. So when new opportunities come along, is it something that I want to do, that I don't want to do? Can I afford it, not afford it? So, and it was time for me to leave my role with how things had changed and whatnot at work. I just felt like it was time for me to go.
So I'm really curious about that, because as you know, I'm a therapist, and I'm working with a couple of people now, funny enough, that are on that cusp of retirement. And this theme has come up, like they've had these long careers and been very dedicated to their work. But this theme has come up of just kind of that they now kind of like know that they're ready. So how do you know, how do you know when you're ready? What was that like for you? I'm super curious about that.
For me, it was the completion of a project. So my last role was a brand new thing. that I started 3 years prior. So it was supporting the development of an application to help the company manage an enterprise-wide program. And they needed this program to be able to show that they were selecting their work in an equitable manner, taking the worst stuff first. And I had never done IT work before. I had used computers, but never been involved in developing an app from scratch. And it was a lot of fun. I worked the team. I had more years of service with a company than they had years on this earth. So it was a really fun dynamic. We all got along great. They knew I knew the business, and they taught me the computer end. So we had a really good rapport and able to work together. And that project came to a close. So we finished the development. The tool was out there being used. I had helped write all the training material and documentation and whatnot for it. So with that being done, I just knew I didn't want to take on anything else of that magnitude again.
Got it. I'm curious about the feelings. I mean, this feeling of like just knowing that you're kind of done. Was it, I don't know, like kind of a burnout? Was it just like, but just literally, I've just kind of had enough. And like you said, a part of me just didn't want to take on anymore. I mean, so what was the kind of feeling, like the gut feeling or the energy behind that?
It was that just being done. It wasn't there was a little bit of burnout there because I was asked to take on another role in addition. So there were a lot of demands on me. Mostly it was the fact of feeling done and knowing that I had done my best to save financially, to take care of myself physically, and be ready to enjoy the next chapter.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, it was just there was a peace when I made the decision. And my husband and I have been going back for several years before, and it's, it wasn't right. And then it was right.
Yeah, I love that. Right. It's kind of like the, I don't know what beliefs people have, but kind of the universe kind of came together, right? Everything kind of aligned, and you just had this just feeling that this was it, this was the time. And then there was this lovely peace, right? You made that decision, right, that you were going back and forth about, and then there was just kind of this peace that settled in, which probably was another indicator that this was the right time for you.
Yeah. I mean, I did come to peace really quickly with it. And I knew as soon as I started really getting serious about the decision, I knew I would miss the people that I worked with. It was sad because the tech team that I worked with, they had all disbanded to go on to other projects. So I knew I wouldn't be working with them anymore. But the other coworkers I had, I knew I would miss them, but I wouldn't miss the work. And that still rings true today. There's some of them that I still do have contact with on a personal level. And I do miss the interaction with them. I don't miss the work.
Yeah. That's a theme I've also heard too, is that some anxiety, if you like, about the transition and missing people, missing coworkers, missing the community, missing the structure, right, of getting up and going to work and showing up and, that 9 to 5 kind of structure. But it does seem to be that community and connection that people are really worried about. So how have you maintained that? How have you met that need, right, for connection and community? How have you done that?
There are a couple different ways, because like I said, there are a couple ladies that I still talk to from time to time. So not every day like we used to, but we still do connect. I was working from home, doing remote work prior to, with the pandemic and everything. We got sent to remote. And for the last 3 years, all of my team members were not located, not just in the same city I was in, but they weren't even located in the same state. So I got very good at connecting through technology, be it, instant messenger, text, phone calls, whatever, so that became a comfortable way to connect with people. I've used the Facebook groups like Back of the Pack Athlete to get connected. And through the half marathons that I do, I've made friends that I do travel with. I'll meet them at a location. We'll have a weekend, do an event or 3 or whatever together. There's also a group that I do a lot with. They really helped me get my first round of 50 states, and that's mainly marathons. With the format, their events, they're out and back, multiple loop type events. And there's a lot of community, a lot of camaraderie there. So with that type of event, since it's not your traditional start here, do the set distance and then finish, where if somebody's not your pace, you don't see them. With this out and back format, you can do one lap, part of a lap with somebody. They have a massive aid station where people will stop and talk while they're getting their hydration and their fuel. You're constantly going past each other, so you're always offering words of encouragement. If you get in a bind with anything, be it a blister on your foot or, a tire that's bad, since you're in it together, you're always looking out for each other. You're always offering help. And that's been a big source of community for me. And I've met several friends there. So I really enjoyed that. And
well,
then
that sounds amazing. I'll definitely put a link in the show notes to that group so listeners can check that out. But that sounds just fantastic.
Yeah. And they suit the Back of the Pack mentality, because their motto is it's not about finish times, it's about finish lines. And they stay until the last person finishes. So you're equally celebrated if you do a marathon under 4 hours as if you do a marathon in 10 hours. So that's really special to me.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I can't tell you, that really warms my heart. There's been many times when I've been close to the last over the finish line, and there's not a soul left. There's hardly a banana at the food station, and everyone's just dispersed like roaches, So it's just, that's really warms my heart. So that's really cool. Really cool. Yeah. So tell me about some of the challenges, right? What is, and I want to talk about joys too, but tell me about some of the challenges that you've kind of faced during this transition.
One of the fun challenges, I'll start off with light and fuzzy, is I don't know what day of the week it is most of the time. So since I don't have work, if I don't have anything on the calendar that week, it gets really hard to know what day of the week it is. So to not be tied to a calendar has been something to get used to relax. Like you said, I'm very type A. I'm out there. I'm a go-getter. So to not have the push of one meeting after another or deadline after deadline to meet, to not have that, and to be relaxed and be okay with it, has been a challenge. The one thing I have to make sure is that I'm not manifesting a crisis to take care of. So
tell me more about that. That's like, now my ears are pricked up. Yeah, tell me about that.
Just to make something a bigger deal than what it is, without having the worries from work. A small worry can become a big worry where it doesn't need to be. So
can you give me an example? Can you give me kind of a personal example if you're comfortable?
Okay, I'll tell on myself. So the other day I was out for a walk. We live in a rural area, and I got distracted watching a little family of geese crossing the road. And I was having a good walk. It was nice weather that day. So I decided to reach into my pocket for my phone and while I was walking. So I quit paying attention to where I was going. And of course, there are no sidewalks out here. So I fell off the edge of the pavement, landed on my side, bruised, but okay. Missed the picture, of course. But I had a trip coming up in a couple weeks, and all I'm thinking about is, I've hurt my elbow. Am I going to be able to navigate the plane? Am I going to be able to carry my bags? Am I going to be able to do all this because my elbow's sore? And I landed on it. It was bruised. It was soft tissue. Nothing was broken. It just needed some time to rest, and it was fine. But my mind just went to going to make it a bigger deal than what it was.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you really highlight so much there. We can really get into these kind of mind stories, right? And before we know it, we're in the emergency room and
right. I'm having surgery. I'm laid up for 3 months, and it's just kind of like, no, step back.
Yeah.
Your fingers work. You can bend things. Everything's good. Some ice, some rest.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's lovely. I appreciate you sharing that. I can totally connect with that as well. I want to go back to something you talked about work not being your identity. That is just so huge for people. They're so wrapped up in their work, so wrapped up in their identity of whatever that role is. So you've done a lot. You've had some extensive roles. How have you not done that? How have you been able to kind of balance work and then also your kind of pleasure time?
Sometimes I've had to put up concrete walls. I've had to create barriers, especially with remote work. It was real easy to creep, logging in earlier, logging out later, not taking time for lunch. So work has always been a means to feed my habits off work. Be it the horses or the walking or the farm here, it's always been a means to do that. I had a lot of jobs and a lot of roles that I liked, worked with and for a lot of just absolutely tremendous people. Nothing was ever my identity. So even the things that I enjoyed the most, be it in the lab doing chemical experiments or going out and investigating an electrical outage to find out what happened, those things, or working with those young developers, those things all, they sparked and they lit me up. They didn't capture everything that is me. So I like to say I don't fit in a box. I don't even know there's a box in the room. So it's having things more than what your job is. And it's, I think part of it is the fact of my career choices. I can see for someone like you being a therapist, that is more of your identity, where you're used to people calling on you for a certain thing. And I didn't have that. So I wasn't, in any kind of service providing role like that where people came specifically to me. So, work was always a means to feed my habits.
Yeah, right. So I'm hearing that you really were mindful about setting boundaries, right? Strong boundaries between work and your outside interests. And I'm also hearing that you just didn't paint yourself into a box, right? You didn't identify as I am this, right? Because you've got many hats, right? You got the athlete, you got the horse trainer, you got the farmer, I know you're married, you got the wife, and blah blah blah, right? Yeah, so you've got many hats. And it sounds like you really did an awesome job, kind of celebrating them all, right? Kind of making room for them all, and that's such a gift, right? That's such a talent.
Yeah, and family's always been important to me too. I have a brother and two sisters. We were all close growing up. So to spend time with them, with my mom, that's something else that just lights me up, is to have quality time with them.
Yeah. So now you're making me think about values, right? I mean, it sounds like you've got some really strong core values around kind of freedom, family, health, right? Health, fitness, right? You've got some really strong values around those things, and you've really been true to them, right? You've really kind of consciously or unconsciously, right? You've really been mindful about being true to those values.
Yeah, that's because when I'm not true to them, that's when I can see life get off the rails. To have those guiding lights and to know, what's important, and that's, what you can put your arms around, that that you need. So, and, taking care of myself is in there. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not there to take care of other people. So that's where the walking really refuels me. And my husband knows if I'm getting wonky, he'll tell me to go out for a walk. He's kind of like, you didn't walk this weekend, did you? I'm kind of like, no. He's kind of like, go. So
that's so funny. I'm the same way, right? If I don't get some trail time, for me, it's trail time, and generally out in the woods. Somebody's saying, Mom, you need to go on the trail. You haven't had any time. Go. Because I get a little cranky and just like off. Yeah, I totally connect with that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about some of the challenges. We've talked about some of the boundaries. What about some of the joys? Tell me about, how your life has kind of opened up. Tell me about some of the.
Yeah, one joy is finding a new rhythm. There's some things that I like to have in a daily or weekly practice to keep me grounded. So finding a new rhythm where my husband and we walk every day with our dog. We weight lift 4 days a week. I have more time to spend with my mom. Because since we are in a rural area, it's a longer drive for me to get to the city and see people. So it's finding that rhythm. It's being able to travel more and do things and not be upset when a flight gets canceled, so you're not getting home until the next day. It's kind of like, okay, I don't have to work. I don't have to worry about spending that extra vacation day. It's, where do I lay my head that night? And I'm good. So it's having the time freedom, having the ability to have that calendar wide open, to do more, to be there more for people. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to kind of get into the groove, right? We talked about going from this highly structured kind of day, logging up to be comfort, right, for your body, your mind, body, to be comfortable enough to like, kind of go with the flow and just kind of be open to whatever's coming your way. How long did that transition take? It
was probably a good 3 to 6 months, especially working with my husband on projects, because with his work schedule and my work schedule, we had 1 day a week to work together up until the time I retired. So that 1 day was just crammed full. We were nonstop. And if the weather didn't cooperate, if we had a piece of equipment break down, then we lost the 1 day we had to do something. Now we can work a couple hours on something, and, work a couple hours today, work a couple hours tomorrow. The weather doesn't cooperate, or, we need to do maintenance on a tractor or something. Fine. We'll pick up the next day. So it took a while to decompress from that and know that if it doesn't get done today, we have tomorrow.
That's lovely. When you're talking, I can just feel this just that kind of open kind of joy. I mean, I'm feeling a lot of joy, right? A lot of joy, a lot of openness, a lot of just, again, got back to that freedom, right? The sense of every day is a kind of a bit of an adventure, right? You kind of get up and you just kind of look to the day. It feels lovely to kind of connect with you and chat about that. Yeah.
I heard a quote, probably almost a year. It was probably 8 or 10 months into retirement, and said retirement is an optimistic act. And I ruminated on that for a while, and it really is. You need to be optimistic. You need to have something to look forward to, a purpose, and your purpose can be anything, whether you want to, work at a homeless shelter, rescue animals, or be the best grandparent you can be, or the best spouse you can be. Your purpose is personal to you and what lights you up. And for me, it doesn't have to be grandiose. It needs to light you up.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important. I mean, that's really the whole theme of this podcast, right? Is kind of living life in a way that really is authentic to you, right? That lights you up. Forget anybody else, forget Instagram, forget Facebook, but just really what brings you joy. I think that's so powerful. So powerful. Yeah. And now I think we're talking a little bit about mindset, right? We're talking a bit about mindset. We're talking about attitude. So tell me a little bit about kind of mindset. What have you had to kind of maybe adjust a little bit as you've made this transition?
The biggest thing is that the day is not defined by someone else. Growing up, you at school that defined what your day looked like. Then you go into work, and work defines what your day looks like. in retirement, it's up to you to define that day and what it looks like. So not having those external expectations, it's a blessing and then a curse that I'm self-motivated to do stuff. So I can make my own to-do list and check things off as we go. And I've always been curious. I've always had, I didn't know what was a growth mindset at the time, but always wanted to learn and be better and do better. And in all my roles, all of them were a stretch. All of them, I was going into something I hadn't done before, and I hadn't seen someone do before. So after I stepped in there, then I found people who were doing it and reached out to them and got help and support that way. But it is putting yourself out there, whether you have it in yourself to put yourself out there or, if you need a prod from someone else or whatever, to get that so that you do keep learning, and keep trying new things and, exploring new places or whatever it is. But it really is keeping your mind open for new experiences and new challenges.
Yeah. I mean, the learning never stops, right? Just because you reach this age and you're retired in air quotes, right? The learning doesn't stop. It's not like the lights just go out and you're now in a dark room, right? The learning doesn't stop. Growth doesn't stop, right?
Right. It's and that's where in retirement, it's your choice. What do you want to learn about? Do you want to learn about walking half marathons? Do you want to learn about native plants, about gardening, about the stars, about motorcycles or antique cars? What do you want to learn about? You get to pick that. You're not told anymore. You're studying English now. You're doing social studies now. You're not, you're completing this project. Now it's up to you to say, hey, I haven't done this before. I haven't had the time to do this before. So let's go explore. And you can go explore, check it out, learn. If you don't like it, say, I tried it. What's next? And maybe it leads you to something else. You start trudging down one path and you say, hey, let's go to the left, take a left turn at Albuquerque and just see what's there. It's in your hands. It's in your mind where you want to go next.
That's beautiful. I love that. Have there been times when you've really had to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone, right? You've really had to kind of, get uncomfortable and kind of really kind of push yourself a little bit. Can you give me maybe an example of that?
There's a lot of times I've pushed myself outside my comfort zone. With walking, it was when my sister and I did the Goofy Challenge 15 years ago now. So to do a half marathon followed by a full marathon the next day. And at that time, they were really strict with their time limits. So I knew I had to be on top of my game both days. So that pushed me out. Doing my first series of half marathons, doing 5 half marathons in 5 states in 5 days, that pushed me out.
Well, let me just say that I'm going to pause you there so listeners can really soak that in. 5 half marathons in 5 states in 5 days, right? So back to back to back. Wow. that is huge. That's huge. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, and that was a humbling experience because there was a woman there with he was 15 to 18-month-old baby. She pushed in a stroller for a half marathon 5 days in a row. So when people said, "You're great," I said, "No, she is." So,
wow. That is, I think, of an inspirational story. Wow.
Yeah. So learning to ride a motorcycle for the first time, and then, now riding an antique motorcycle. So it's,
Yeah.
it's throwing yourself out there. I had to get used to not being good at everything. I saw something, and I don't know if I posted it on the group or not, but, be afraid to suck at something new. And I've developed a real affinity for it, because when you start something new, that's the time when you can ask all the stupid questions, anything, nothing's off bounds when you're starting something new. So to be comfortable with that, to be comfortable coming in last at an event, to fall down and get back up, that's, failure just means you learned a way not to do it. So
be comfortable making mistakes, right? Be comfortable making mistakes. Yeah, that's so powerful.
Yeah, if you can learn from somebody else and you don't have to fall down and bruise your elbow, that's great. But if, sometimes you have to take the fall, and it's just saying, okay, my bad.
Yeah. Because when you take the fall, right, you can brush yourself off and pick yourself up and keep going, right? I mean, there's power in that.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. So what would you tell listeners, right? So listeners that, maybe thinking about it, maybe on the edge, maybe a year away, that playing with this idea of retirement, should I, shouldn't I? What would you tell listeners? Maybe some tips and strategies from your experience.
For me, first of all, it was making sure financially we were okay. I needed to know that we had the financial resources to do it. So check that box. Make sure that you are financially prepared, that what your life can be financially, what you can afford to do afterwards. And you can try things before retirement. So like me with walking the half marathons, I was deep into that before I retired. I have played around with gardening a little bit, so I got to play and do some things before retirement. So you can do that while you're working, just to get a taste. Yes, I like this. No, I don't. And so that you don't have to go full bore into it. You can just do a little taste, and don't be afraid to dream big about what you want to do. Do you want to go to Africa on safari? Do you want to go to all the national parks? What do you want to feed all the homeless in your town? Don't be afraid to dream big, and then rein it in as you need to. So to make sure you have something that excites you, that you want to go do, and then to be prepared to be directing your life yourself. So nobody else is putting those expectations on you.
Yeah.
So, and
that's a big one.
Yeah. Be ready to forget what day of the week it is.
Yeah, I love that. That's such freedom too, isn't it? Just not knowing what's the time, what's the day, what month are we? Yeah, I love that. I love that. So kind of wrapping up here, if you could offer just kind of one last piece of kind of sage advice, and it could be about anything, just in a life in general, what might that be for you?
The topic that resonates the most with me right now is to be kind. Kindness goes such a long way, and it can be shown in so many different ways. A simple smile to somebody you pass in the street, telling somebody when they drop something. Especially, I really like the back of the pack athlete group because everyone is so supportive. There's so many other groups and other instances online where you have the trolls, you have people being mean, and I can't see a reason for it, except for that people are mean or want to show their superiority of knowledge or something. Be kind. If somebody's doing something wrong, there's a way to tell them nicely, have you thought about this? Or this is how I do it, there's ways to be kind and be nice and leave the world a better place than how you found it.
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful. Kindness is one of my big values as well. I think it's so important, right? So important. Yeah. So thank you. I mean, just what a powerful conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much. If people want to connect with you or reach out to you or maybe to have some questions, where might they find you?
In Facebook, I use my middle name. So I'm Rae Antenucci on Facebook. I haven't done anything yet with a blog or a website or anything. It's something I've thought about doing, but after spending 30 years in front of a computer, it's not something I'm anxious to get back to. I do have ideas out there, so there may be something coming.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So I encourage people to kind of reach out. And also, I do want to honor that Beth has been a super help in the back of the pack. She does all our Monday motivational quotes, and she does our inspirational stuff on Wednesdays. So I really do thank you for that as well. It's been amazing.
You're welcome. It's been fun.
Yeah. So any last questions or thoughts or anything before we wrap up here today?
I can't think of anything right now. But I guess the only other thought I have is a quote, and I know I need to put it up in the group, is you're not given a good life or a bad life. It's up to you to make it good or bad. So, be positive, be optimistic. Yes, there are times you're not going to be happy all the time. You're not going to be optimistic all the time. But if optimism, if joy is your predominant thing, that's what you'll have come back to you.
Yeah. That's powerful, and totally resonate with that. Big believer in that for sure. So thank you so much for sharing and spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your time. I love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Remember to grab your free hiking guide, and please take a quick moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Thanks so much. Take care. Until next time.